Is Disney Vacation Club worth the money in 2024? Today, I'm going to answer that question for you. I'm going to take you through all of the different cost elements of a Disney Vacation Club contract so that you can make the right decision. We're going to compare contracts direct with Disney, with resale, and also with the option of rent-in points instead of actually taking out a contract yourself. Disney Vacation Club membership is essentially Disney's version of a timeshare. It allows you to stay in the Disney Vacation Club resorts on property at the likes of Disney World or Disneyland, but also at other resorts like Vero Beach and Hilton Head. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that you can make if you are thinking about purchasing a Disney Vacation Club contract is not understanding all of the various elements of the cost of your contract. I actually went to a Disney Vacation Club presentation the first time I was looking into getting a contract, and the way that it was presented to me really didn't make it clear how much it was actually going to cost me for my kind of vacation, or just how it was going to cost over the full time of the contract. And also, it didn't really make it clear to me how the cost of the particular resort they were selling to me compared to the other resorts that I can purchase. And so that's what we're here to do today, to make sure that if you are interested in Disney Vacation Club, or if you're just even considering it, that you really understand all of the elements of the cost, and you can also make a decision by fully being able to compare not only the different resorts available with a Disney Vacation Club, also the different types of contract, i.e. direct with Disney or on the resale market, and the other alternative option, which is just going through a third party and renting points if you want to go and stay at one of these resorts. So in order to do that, we are going to open my trusty spreadsheet. If you've seen one of these videos before, you will be familiar with this, but this is just a Google Sheet doc. It will be linked down below. If you want to use it, you can update it for all of your personal situations, update it for the kind of points that you might want to purchase and use. But do know that you will have to make a copy of the spreadsheet. I always get so many requests to share the editing privileges. I will keep the document locked, but you can just make a copy of it and then you can work away and do whatever you want to do with it. By the way, if you're wondering what's going on over here, this is Pumba's little den. He is my cute little dog, and yes, he is spoiled and he loves to have a little den like this with a blanket over him. And you might actually hear him snoring in the background because he's super comfy in there with his little Winnie the Pooh hot water bottle. So this is the spreadsheet, and this is how we are going to compare all of the resorts as well as the different contract types. So you can see in column A there, I've got listed all of the Disney resorts. These are the resorts that you can purchase Disney Vacation Club membership at. This will be your home resort. So selecting a home resort is essentially the resort that you're buying the timeshare in. It's just that by purchasing any home resort, you also get access to other resorts with certain limitations. But your home resort is super important because that's the resort that's going to determine the price that you pay. It's also the resort that you're going to get the early access to, and at some points of the year, that will be the only resort that you're able to book if it's a popular time, and bookings get snapped up really quick. The early booking window is at the 11-month mark, and then at the 7-month mark, that's when it opens up where you can book other resorts other than your home resort. Let's start off by going onto the Disney Vacation Club website. And this is where I'm really going to make it clear that you have to do your own research, because I feel like trying to get the information just from what's advertised on the Disney Vacation Club website, or just by going to the parks and going to one of the presentations, it's just not going to give you the full picture. We have landed on the Disney Vacation Club website. We are in the cost of membership section right now. Right at the top, they have this beautiful banner advertising 50% off. I've had a quick read of the T's and C's. It is essentially saying that if you purchase Riviera or Aulani right now versus rent, I think it's talking about renting from a third party, it doesn't specify, over the full course of a Disney Vacation Club contract. So every year for the full life of the contract, you can potentially save 50%, but there is not actually a 50% offer on membership or anything like that. So let's not get too excited. Now, as we scroll down, one thing that jumps out and just rings alarm bells for me straight away is the offer of convenient financing starting at X amount per month for a 10-year loan with a 10% down payment. The cost of financing a Disney Vacation Club contract over 10 years with Disney is astronomical in terms of the interest that you're going to pay. 10% is not a low interest rate, and 18%, which is actually the higher interest rate that some people do get offered, is a wildly high interest rate to pay over the course of a 10-year loan. And this is something that will dramatically increase the cost of a Disney Vacation Club contract. Now, we'll factor that in later on, but I just want to flag it straight away because I do feel like this offer of financing and this sort of random number that gets thrown out of X amount a month, like, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? At what resort, for how many points, and how much of that is interest? That's the big question, because if it's interest, it's dead money. It's not going towards your contract. It is just the cost of using Disney's financing. We'll come back to that, but let's move on for now. We're going to have a look down at what Disney also advertises as the cost of membership. So you have your purchase price, your closing cost. Now, the closing cost is a fee that's like a one-off fee for actually just kind of like papering over your contract. So it's not actually something that I factor in terms of looking at the contract over the life of the contract. It's a one-off fee. It's not a reoccurring fee. And then you also have your annual dues. Now, this is reoccurring, as it suggests. Every year you will pay annual dues, and that amount will be different depending on what resort you pick. So we're going to skip past the calculator. I actually had a little go at this earlier, and it was telling me I needed a lot more points than I actually do. So we're just going to ignore that for now. We're going to have a look at the resorts that are currently on offer. So on offer right now are Riviera, the villas at Disneyland Hotel, and Ulani. And by the end of this week, or like in a week's time, I think it's Tuesday the 27th, the cabins at Fort Wilderness will also go on offer. So they're currently not available now to non-members, but they will go on sale. So we will see them in the mix here on the website very soon. Now, the important bit of information we want to pick up here is the cost per point. So we can see Riviera is in here at $225. The villas at Disneyland are $239, and the Ulani contract is in at $225. Now, that is the most important number on this whole page of numbers here, and that is a number that's easily comparable resort by resort. Let's also have a quick look at the current offer that's on for these resorts. Usually these offers work in such a way that you have to purchase a minimum number of points and then you start getting a discount. So let's scroll down. So the minimum purchase is $150. Now, that is actually also the minimum purchase required in order to get the member benefits. The member benefits are additional benefits that Disney offers to Disney Vacation Club members that purchase direct with Disney. There are some historic members that purchase on resale that also get those benefits, but going forward as a new member, the only way to get them is to purchase direct with Disney, and the minimum number of points you need to purchase to get those benefits is 150. Benefits include things like a discounted annual pass, special events during the year, and special Disney Vacation Club member discounts. There's also like a cruise you can go on and pay for, of course. But there's a few interesting benefits. You can check them out directly on the website. At that 150 minimum, you also are going to get offered the savings that they have advertised here. So Ulani is offering $10 once you hit that 150. Riviera is offering $7 off per point once you hit the 150, and the villas at Disneyland are offering $5. I expect the cabins at Fort Wilderness will also have a similar discount when they come on sale. Now, because the calculation that we are doing is looking at a 150 point contract, because that's the minimum to get the benefits, so there's really no other reason to go direct with Disney, we're going to include the discounted price in our calculations because that is actually the price you would pay. The discounts are currently valid through April 1st, but from what I've seen, these resorts that are actively on sale are pretty much always involved in some sort of discount. Popping back to our spreadsheet, we'll start filling in those discounted costs. So Riviera is 225 less 7. Let's do that. Now we've got 2 Riviera lines. Don't worry about that just yet. The Disneyland Hotel is 239 less 5. Finally then, Ulani is $225 with $10 off. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's 3 resorts that are on sale, so they're the only ones that I can choose from. That is actually not the case. Disney will also allow you to purchase other resorts directly from them, even though they're not actively on sale. If a resort is actively on sale, it's likely a new resort or a resort that has had an expansion, and therefore they have all these points in the resort and they're dishing them out to members. Now, each resort has a finite number of points because you're essentially purchasing a little piece of the resort. That's how like a timeshare works, right? So once all of the points are sent out and people have purchased them, you can't then sell more points unless, of course, you purchase back some of those timeshare or Disney Vacation Club memberships. If you go to the resale market to sell your contract, Disney will exercise its right of first refusal if it chooses to. That means essentially I might agree with a third party to sell my contract for a fixed price. We've agreed it, everything's ready to go, and Disney can come in and say, actually, do you know what, for that price, I'm going to snatch it off you and take it because I have the right of first refusal on every single contract. And that's how Disney gets a lot of its contracts back in-house to then sell again directly to you. So I actually purchased my contract originally, my very first one, direct with Disney, and it was at a resort that was not actively on sale. I just reached out to Disney in advance, said I wanted to purchase it. Now that actually was quite a dramatic situation. I have a whole video on that, but eventually ended up as it sort of should have been. But it is definitely something that you can do. You just reach out to Disney in advance, or if you just show up, they will tell you what is available at the time. But if you've really got a resort in mind, I definitely recommend reaching out in advance. I know from the UK, I had to reach out in advance and then complete the contract in person. But maybe in the US, you don't have to do that. You can maybe reach out and complete everything without having to do so in person. So how do we get the price then for all of these other resorts? Well, there's a few different third-party websites online that will give you that information. I literally just Google it, find the information and pop it into the spreadsheet. So let's do that. dvcnews.com has a list updated as of the end of January 2024, starting with Animal Kingdom Lodge at 210. Let's drop that in, and I'll magically populate the rest for you. And just like that, the rest of them are populated. Now what we'll do is we will input the price per point for a resale contract. Now you can purchase a resale contract on a couple of different third-party websites. Essentially all that's happening here is you've got an intermediary third party who comes in and arranges a sale between a seller and a buyer. So if I wanted to sell my contract, I could list it on one of these websites, and then if a buyer comes along and wants to buy it, we'll agree all the T's and C's. There will also be a closing fee, just like when you purchase with Disney. You'll have to actually check out the details per contract. You can see it's calculated based on the contract price, etc. But you can then agree on the price. Obviously Disney can come in and snatch it away, but if they don't, you will then continue to actually complete the sale. Now, there are a lot of those third parties. I'm not affiliated with any single one of them, but I do actually really like one particular website in terms of actually getting up-to-date information. So that website is dvcresalemarket.com, and if you go into the blog section, you will see the latest resale prices or average resale prices based on listings that have gone through their site. So I'm going to scroll down and you can see DVC resale average sale prices for Jan 2024. So let's have a look at this. So it's nice and up to date, but also it gives you actually a full year of prices. So you can kind of see where the current price is sitting versus previous months. So let's pop in Animal Kingdom Lodge 110. Now what you're going to see happening in column D here is that we've got a calculation reflecting the discount available on the resale market versus direct with Disney. And this is where I was saying, unless you have a particular want or need for the direct membership benefits with Disney, you can buy the exact same contract. Your points on the resale market are as good as my points direct with Disney, except for a couple of resorts that we'll get onto now in a minute. So let's have a look at Animal Kingdom Lodge just on this sort of chart here. January 2024, $110, but back in January 2023, $130. It's a big difference, and you can see the trend has been downwards, which is positive for the market right now in terms of purchase and resale. And just having a quick browse down, that seems to be pretty consistent. Polynesian actually seems to be one that has maintained its value Most of the others, I think, have dropped down. Oh, Grand Floridian is actually higher. But yeah, most of them look like they have that steady decrease over the last year. This makes sense because the contract today is worth less than it was a year ago because there's one less year left on the contract. All of the contracts have a fixed end date. It's not like you buy a new contract and it's X number of years. Every single property, their contracts have a fixed end date, okay? Now that is included in the spreadsheet, but we'll get onto it in a minute. So that does make sense, but you know what? It's not what you always see. Sometimes you will see that prices increase over time, even though, like I say, the value should theoretically be decreasing because you have one less year. I've now populated the rest of the resale prices based on that chart. So now we can see the discounts across the board, and you will see that some contracts have really high discounts. So let's look at Ulani, 51%, and some have much lower. So Grand Floridian is down at 27%. And that's where, you know, doing the juggle, if you are going for the 150 point contract, maybe 27% discount is not enough to steer you away from that direct contract and the benefits that come with it. Now you'll notice for Old Key West we have two different prices, and that is because Old Key West is the only resort that has two different end years. Its original end year was 2042, but it did offer members the option of adding on an additional 15 years, I think it was, to 2057 at an additional cost, and some members took that up. Now, what also happens is if Disney buys back a contract with a 2042 ending, it will actually resell it at the 2057 year end. They obviously just repaper it. Don't know exactly how the legalities work there. If you're purchasing your OQS contract direct with Disney, it's always going to have the 2057 end. But if you are purchasing on the resale market, you will find some contracts that have the 2042 end, and that's certainly something you want to pay attention to because those extra 15 years obviously have value to them. So hence why the contracts at the 2042 year end are cheaper. Now we don't have resale prices yet for the villas at Disneyland. It is a new resort and there just obviously aren't any contracts on sale yet. So let's talk about restrictions on the resale points. Now this particularly applies to the Riviera and the villas at Disneyland, i.e. the newer resorts. Disney is really trying to discourage you from going to that resale market for these two resorts. What they have done is kind of ring fence them in their own little category. So if you have a Riviera or a Villas at Disneyland contract on the resale market, you can only ever use those points to stay at the resort that you have purchased. So if you purchase a Riviera contract on the resale market, you can only ever stay at Riviera. If you purchase the Villas at Disneyland, you can only ever stay at the Villas at Disneyland. And that's it, you're ring fenced in there. Now, if you purchase those contracts direct, you don't have that restriction. But if you purchase on the resale market, that's the restriction that you're stuck with. That for me is a significant restriction. It would prevent me from ever purchasing either of those contracts on the resale market. As well as that restriction, if I purchase any other contract on the resale market, Animal Kingdom Lodge, Bay Lake Tower, whatever it might be, I can't use my resale points at these newer resorts. So Riviera and the Villas at Disneyland, and I expect the cabins at Fort Wilderness will be the same. Like I say, those resorts are sort of ring fenced into their own category, and they're now only available to members that have purchased directly. I imagine this is a trend that is going to continue with newer resorts. So if staying at the newer Disney Vacation Club resorts is going to be super important to you, that's another reason to consider that direct contract with Disney. Moving over then to column E, which is 150 points. That's the base contract that I've selected in order to compare across the board. Now, the number of points that you select should be based on how you intend to use them. So for me personally, I like to do like 2 weeks in a studio, or we will pool our points together and do a week in like a 1 bed or 2 bed, something like that. But we generally would quite easily use 150 points a year. But the way that you can check how many points you think you would use is by using a cost calculator. I don't think that Disney Vacation Club directly offers a very good option here. So I like to use Dave's Vacation Club Rental. This is actually also the third-party website that we'll use for the rental prices comparison, but let's go on to their cost calculator. I love this tool. I think it's great, and I really don't understand why Disney doesn't have something like this built in to their website. Now, what you can do is just pick a date. So for me, September is a month that I really like to travel in. I'm going to just pop in 2 weeks there, and then when I scroll down here, we've got the dollar cost, which is the cost of rental. If you change to display points, it's going to tell you how many points you would need for that stay. So we can see here a standard view Animal Kingdom Lodge room is 152 points in a studio. So if that's what I intend to do every year, that's a good indication that I might want some points around there. Now, maybe I only intend to travel every second year, in which case I would half that number because I can bank every second year and travel. Okay, so then you might decide, okay, actually I only want half of 150 because I only plan to go for 2 weeks every second year. So there's different ways that you can play around with this tool to find the right number of points for you. Also, bearing in mind, we talked about that 150 minimum earlier in terms of getting your member benefits, and then it's a 100-point minimum direct with Disney at all. So if you want less than 100 points, you cannot go direct with Disney as of right now. You'd have to find a contract on the resale market. Jumping back in, all I have done then here is used 150 points across the board and then calculated the cost of 150 points direct with Disney based on the price per point with Disney and 150 points on the resale market. Now you can see the difference. Animal Kingdom Lodge, it'll cost me $31,500 direct with Disney or $16,500 on the resale market. That is a huge difference and definitely something you want to take into account. Now, that is the first element of cost, the price per point for the number of points that you think you would use as part of your vacation. Now we're going to move on to that annual reoccurring fee, the annual dues. This is applicable at all Disney Vacation Club resorts. The price per year is actually subject to change. It kind of works like a service fee. You know, if you're like renting a property and you have to pay a service charge, it's kind of like that. So it depends on works that are happening in your resort. If you're having a refurb, if you've got a skyliner, if you've got a beachfront, which is going to require a lot of maintenance, if you've got animals, all these different things feed in. But you can usually see like a pretty steady increase in terms of percentage over years. Let's take a look at the annual dues prices for 2024. I have come onto dvcfan.com for this list, and actually I really like how they've done it because they show the 2023 price, the 2024 price, and the percentage increase, and you can have a look there and see which resorts have increased more substantially than others. So let's take Animal Kingdom Villas here, or Animal Kingdom Lodge. It is $9.0820. Let's pop that into the spreadsheet. So 9.0820. And I've just populated the rest of them in there as well. Now the annual dues are calculated per point. So that price, that $9, for example, at Animal Kingdom Lodge is multiplied by the number of points that you have in your contract. So the bigger the contract, the bigger your annual dues cost. Now, what I have done is just multiply that by the 150 because that's what we're using in this example. Now, next part over is our contract end. So we touched on this earlier. You can see the different contract end years. It's going to be based on when the resort was established. So for example, the villas at Disneyland, the contract end year there is 2074. So obviously 50 years left on that, so a long time to go. Then you have a resort like Animal Kingdom Lodge, which has 33 years left. A resort like Hilton Head only has 18 years. And obviously that's something you want to consider because you're purchasing the contract for your set price, and that price only covers you until the end of the contract life of that resort. Now, it's possible that they may come along and offer extensions like they have done with Old Key West. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. But I know what happened with the Old Key West extension was quite messy, and I think there was a lot of like legal stuff going on there, and they maybe didn't do it the best way they should have. So I think that's why they haven't progressed and done other resorts. Maybe they're trying to think of a better way to do it. This total contract cost in column L then is taking your annual dues that we just looked at and multiplying it by the number of years left on your contract. And it's also then taken the total upfront cost of your contract. Now, obviously, big assumption here is that annual dues are going to stay the same. They're obviously not going to, but we're just taking current year prices and extrapolating it out over the life of the contract. We're not taking into account inflation in terms of the comparatives we're going to use for rental prices, and we're not taking into account the increase in annual dues. So it's kind of a level playing field. I'm just trying to find a way of comparing apples and apples, but it's definitely making some very large assumptions. It's just a way of enabling a current day comparison and also not making this an incredibly complex financial calculation for you guys. So this total contract cost, that's what it does. It takes the price today for your contract, the price today for your annual dues over the length of your contract, and adds them both together to give you an idea of, like, if you purchase your contract today based on current prices, how much are you actually going to pay over the life of your contract. Obviously, if you have a contract that has 50 years left, you've got 50 years of annual dues that you're committing to. So it's going to look a lot higher, and we're going to make some adjustments to make it a bit more comparable. Now, there is an additional element of cost at two resorts, Aulani and the villas at Disneyland, and that is an additional tax. It's down to the location of the resort and the fact that there just is a tax charged by the state or the locality. Like, it just is a tax to stay in any accommodation in those locations. Now, the Grand Californian in Disneyland is also in the same jurisdiction as the villas at Disneyland, but they structured that contract differently in that they built it into the price per point, whereas the villas at Disneyland, it's not built in and it is an additional price that you will pay per point when you actually stay at the resort. And at Aulani, it's charged as well at the resort when you stay there. So I have just added the tax in for the Aulani resort and the villas at Disneyland. So that is now included in the total contract cost. That's assuming that you use your points and stay there, right? We've also then got the total resale cost. And then what I've done to allow us to compare is that I have looked at the total contract cost per year. So what we did first of all was take our upfront cost, then we added in the annual dues cost across the whole lifespan of the contract. And now we're going to take that fully loaded cost, including tax, and divide it by the number of years left in the contract to give us like an annual fee or an annual cost, an annualized cost for each resort to enable us to compare. Because obviously, you know, the villas at Disneyland has that annual dues cost for 50 years and also has a contract that lasts for 50 years. So you want to know, okay, how can I compare that to the cost of a contract at Animal Kingdom Lodge that only has 33 years left? Yeah, 33 years left. And the only way to do that is to actually divide it by the number of years and get a cost per year that is more comparable. Okay, so this is our total contract cost per year. Now, we'll look at Animal Kingdom Lodge. It's looking kind of expensive here, $2,316, compared to, say, Grand Floridian, $1,998. Now, this is looking at a contract of the exact same number of points, 150 points at Animal Kingdom Lodge, 150 points at the Grand Floridian. We've also done the same for resale. We've got our total resale contract cost per year. And again, you can see the likes of Animal Kingdom Lodge, 1862, and then let's take Grand Floridian, 1758. So if that was the only information you'd consider, you would think that Grand Floridian is more expensive than Animal Kingdom Lodge. Let's introduce a really important element of this cost calculation that if you haven't thought about, you really are not understanding the true value of your contract versus another contract. And that is the fact that you are choosing your home resort. And when you are thinking about the cost of your contract, you need to think about it as if you intend to stay at your home resort, because that is the only resort that you really have any guarantee of being able to get reservations for. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get reservations at other resorts, you definitely can, but I've found availability has been so much harder, particularly at that 7 month and sooner mark. And so the only guarantee for me really is that at 11 months I can book and get the dates I want. I've been able to chop and change like often, and I've always been able to get the resort that I wanted when I had planned super far in advance. But whenever I'd looked, you know, within that 7 month mark, maybe 6, 5, 4 months, it's been really tricky to change things around if I maybe change my mind. So it was so important that when you are thinking about this, you were thinking about staying at your home resort, and that's how you work out the price. Now, every resort charges a different point per night to stay in the rooms. Let's go back to our cost calculator. Animal Kingdom Lodge in a standard view room, 152 points for a studio, okay? We're ignoring this value figure here, right? Because the value rooms at Animal Kingdom Lodge are almost impossible to book, even at the 11 month mark. There's a couple of rooms like that I have added into the comparison, because oftentimes what will happen is if you go to a presentation, they will present you this value room as being your sort of base room. And I guarantee you will not be able to book a value studio at Animal Kingdom Lodge throughout the duration of your contract every time you want to book. You should not look at this when trying to figure out how much it costs to stay at Animal Kingdom Lodge, because it's just not accurate. It's so hard to book those rooms. 152 points is the regular studio that is going to be readily available to book. Let's look at Grand Floridian, seeing as we were using that as the example. 240 points, the exact same dates, the exact same room standard, a studio in a standard view room, 240 points versus 152 points. That's a massive difference, okay? That is, 90, almost 88 points in the difference. And for those 88 points extra, you have to pay the price per point in the initial upfront contract and the annual dues. So all of a sudden, comparing those two resorts, Animal Kingdom is now going to become significantly cheaper. So let's go back to our calculation. What I've inputted here is 2 weeks in a standard studio in each of these resorts. So 152 at Animal Kingdom Lodge, like we just saw, Grand Floridian 240. Now, I've also included Riviera Tower Room. This is very similar to the Animal Kingdom Lodge value room in that like it's a lot cheaper. But I do think this has a bit more availability, only really at that 11-month mark. I did manage to snag a reservation myself at the 7-month mark, but I would say like for guarantee getting that room, you want to be booking it right away. And it's definitely going to be more difficult than the standard room. But again, Disney will present you this tower room as the base one when looking to calculate the cost of your contract, because it's going to look significantly cheaper. But if you have not stayed or seen the tower room, it is a very small room. It is only suitable for 2 people, and it's definitely not comparable to the other resorts in terms of like a standard studio. So I've included the standard studio, which is 208, and the tower, which is 152. You should only base your calculation on the tower if you plan on only ever staying in a tower room and you plan on booking at the 11-month mark every single time, and being vigilant about trying to get that room. But also there's still a risk there that you won't get it. Same with the Disneyland, the villas at Disneyland. They've got a standard studio, but they've also got this duo studio. So I've put that in as well, just so you have it there. So let's now look at adding the point per room and how that affects the cost of your annual trip to Disney World. So this is assuming that you are looking to take a 2-week trip every year to Disney World and you want to stay in your home resort. You can obviously amend this spreadsheet, change it about for what suits you, but we're looking at that 14-night trip in September 2024. Animal Kingdom Lodge, it's going to cost $2,347. Grand Floridian is going to cost $3,197. So almost an extra, maybe like $900 between the two there. So that's very much taken that comparison and flipped it on its head, right? And this is what you have to do. You have to look at the cost, the upfront cost per point of your contract, the annual dues, and how much do I have to spend in terms of those points to stay at the resort that is my home resort for the period of time that I expect to spend in Walt Disney World every year, or, you know, at Disneyland or wherever it is that you want to stay. Then we've got the cost for the 14-night stay based on the resale price. So you can see that difference there between Animal Kingdom Lodge, direct with Disney, and on the resale market. And I've also just done that out as a cost per night as well for comparison. So $167 per night versus $134 per night on the resale market. Let's just have a look at some interesting ones here. So here's the Grand Californian in Disneyland, $316 per night direct, or $295 on the resale market. So that's quite a tight one there, but I know it's almost impossible to get those contracts. Old Key West, $163 per night direct with Disney, $135 on the resale market, or that total price per year, $2,283 for the 14-night and $1,900. So hopefully this now gives you an idea of how much does it actually cost me on a yearly basis to have a Disney Vacation Club contract that allows me to stay at my home resort for a set period of time. And you can see how that calculation has changed as we've input all of the different elements. Okay, I hope you're still with me. Final thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to look at booking these resorts but via a third party and renting Vacation Club points. So this is not becoming part of the timeshare. It's not becoming a Disney Vacation Club member. It's just saying, actually, I would like to use a Vacation Club member's contract and stay on their points. Now, what is happening here is a member has decided to put a certain number of points up for rental on via a third party, and you can actually come along and say, hey, I want to stay at Animal Kingdom Lodge for these dates. The member goes, books the trip for you, and then charges you for the use of the points. I'm just going to angle down a little bit. You might as well see him, seeing as he's sitting on the lap. Let's put in those rental prices for comparison. If we go back to dvcrequest.com, which is Dave's Vacation Club, now we're going to switch over to display cost from display points, and we can start putting in these cash prices. So 3192 is the cash price you would pay to essentially use someone else's vacation club membership to stay at Animal Kingdom Lodge. Rent versus direct, you're saving $844 per year. Now, obviously, this is like an apples to orange comparison, okay? If I have a Disney Vacation Club membership, I have that membership for the full duration of the contract unless I sell it. And that means that I'm financially bound every single year to pay the annual dues. And obviously, I have to pay that huge upfront cost and hopefully not finance it. If I decide to go onto the rental website, I'm just committing to one booking. I'm just committing to booking those 2 weeks of points for 1 year. I have no additional financial commitments. I don't have to pay the annual dues. I don't have to get this cost up front for the whole 33 years of the contract. I just have to pay for that one booking, the $3,192 versus the total cost of the contract back here. Let's go with the direct, $76,455. That's a huge difference, right? All right, we've got those rent prices in now, and you can see the rent versus direct now for all of the resorts. There are some with massive savings. So let's look at this one. Grand Floridian, 1,842. All that is really reflective of is that it's an expensive resort to book via the third party to rent. And so actually, you know, if it is a resort that you're going to book frequently, maybe you do need to think about the option of becoming a member yourself. Now what we're going to do is very quickly put an element of finance in here, okay? 76,455.90, 76,455.90 over 10 years at 10%. Animal Kingdom Lodge at 76,455. Ignore the pound signs on this website. I've just used a calculator, but we're using the dollar numbers. It is going to be $119,000, and the cost of just the interest alone on that contract is $42,500. This really scares me because I know that when you go into these presentations, the Disney Vacation Club presentations, they do push the finance, and I just don't think they really explain the cost of debt. That $42,000. If you saw that $42,000, I think you would go, oh gosh, $42,000 just for the finance. And I just don't think they present it in this way. And I think, you know, that's the same with a lot of, I'm not saying that particularly about Disney, that's just the same with a lot of lenders. I don't feel like it's made particularly clear. What they tend to focus on is that monthly payment, and people think, oh, I can afford the monthly payment. And really, it's because they don't comprehend the full element of interest that's in there, that principal interest division, and how much that is going to accumulate over the years in the 10-year contract. That's going to massively eat into any comparative value. If we were to instead compare the cost of renting versus direct using the value including interest, let's see if we can do that. So I have done a very crude calculation here. I'm not going to extrapolate this out across the different resorts because it's applicable in Animal Kingdom Lodge quite easily, because it's 150 points that we used as our base, and it's 152 for the studio for the 2 weeks. So it's kind of a quicker calculation. And also, I just want to make this point. I really want to make this clear. It is $3,638 for your 2-week stay if you financed your contract. To rent is only $3,192, right? Just soak that in for a second, versus the cost without finance over here, which was the $2,347. You've increased your cost for your 2-week trip per year by over $1,000. It's $1,300, and you have just stripped away any potential saving versus just going through a third party, not committing to that spend over all of those years. Now, obviously, there's benefits to being a Disney Vacation Club member, direct, that I talked about earlier, but that cost is astronomical. And I do not encourage anybody to buy Disney Vacation Club on finance. I think you're better off saving, waiting until you can afford it. Or Rachel and I, when we actually purchased our contract direct, I went against all the advice that I'm talking about here. We did actually use finance, but that was because we were paying it back over a very short period. We just hadn't got the funds to hand on the trip. And also they were changing the requirements for the member benefits. They were increasing that minimum. We came in and got our contract when 80 points was the minimum for the direct benefits. We wanted those benefits. And at 80 points, it felt right because it's obviously a smaller contract. So you're buying a smaller contract at that higher price. And we then got an additional contract on the resale market to get the membership that we have today. And that kind of gives the best of both worlds. We get the direct member benefits, but the majority of our contract was actually purchased at the lower resale price. Now, like I say, we got a loan, but we paid it back so quick. And because we paid it back quick, the amount of interest that we paid was really low. I really hope that this makes it clear that that financing option is just, it's wild. Let me just, for the sake of curiosity, pump that up to the 18%, which is possible with Disney Direct. And we're now in crazy territory. Let me jump back in, pop that in there. The total cost of the loan is now $81,000. That's just in interest. And your cost for your 2-week trip has now gone up to almost $5,000. Okay. Please, please, please don't take a loan at 18% for a Disney Vacation Club contract. It's absolutely not worth it. If that's the question you're asking yourself and you've come to this video, do not do it. It's not worth it. The answer is no, okay? If you are in a situation where you are considering financing a direct contract, maybe look at the resale market, maybe take a bit of time to save and see if you can purchase that contract with cash, or maybe go out to the market and get a much cheaper interest rate for a loan to purchase it if you're super keen on doing it really soon for whatever reason. Maybe see if you can make high repayments and pay it down over a shorter period of time. Definitely find all of that information out before you commit to a loan. And I really hope that this has been super helpful. It's always my goal here just to give you the information that I think you need when you're looking to make the decision about becoming a Disney Vacation Club member. It's information that I think, again, is not readily available if you are just to go onto the website directly or to go into one of the presentations, but I think that it's super important if you want to make that decision. For me personally, being a Disney Vacation Club member that joined a few years ago, it's still worthwhile for me in 2024. We are still traveling there a lot and we use our Vacation Club membership a lot. And I feel like we have, well, I can see that we have saved money versus if we would have been making cash bookings, especially given the prices these days. With that, I think Pumbaa is looking for a bit of attention and maybe even a W. So I will leave you guys here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been helpful. There will be plenty more videos like this coming. I actually will do a dedicated video on the Fort Wilderness cabins, so definitely subscribe if you're interested in that. I also have vlogs from my trips to Florida. There's a brand new one coming very soon, and there's also other videos that I think will be of interest. So thank you. I always appreciate the support. Leave me any comments, questions you have down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.